On today's Hike Like a Woman podcast, we have the pleasure of talking with one of the most badass women on the planet right now. This woman just triple crowned in under 365 days. She's the only woman that holds this actual record, and I am so pleased to be able to introduce to you Miss Heather Anderson. Hi, Heather. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. I'm doing really good. Where are you calling from right now?
I'm actually in Florida with family right now.
That's where I am too. It's so funny. A little Florida girl over here getting excited. I finally get to talk to somebody who's in my area.
Yeah.
So, did you grow up in the outdoors and hiking and all of this, or is this something that you just kind of fell into and just fell in love with?
Yeah, I didn't really grow up with hiking. I found it when I was in my early 20s and fell in love with it then, and I've been doing it ever since.
Oh my gosh, that is awesome. That is awesome. And just so some of the people who are new to the podcast or new to hiking in general, you are you've done the Triple Crown 3 times. And so can you explain to those who may not know what a Triple Crown is, what it is, and the whole endeavor of this past year doing the Triple Crown in 1 calendar year?
Sure. So the Triple Crown is basically comprised of the 3, I think they're the 3 oldest of our national scenic trails. The Appalachian Trail, which is about 2,200 miles now. It changes every year. The Pacific Crest Trail, which is about 2,600 miles, and that's on the West Coast, California, Washington, and Oregon. And then the Continental Divide Trail, which is not yet, well, it is complete, but it doesn't have a set route. There's a lot of variety to it, so it kind of depends. Its official length is 3,100 miles, and that runs through the Rockies along the Continental Divide. And so if you've hiked each of those trails, you're considered what's called a Triple Crowner. And so I've hiked each of those trails 3 times, which makes me a Triple Crowner. And completing a calendar year Triple Crown just means that in 1 calendar year, so 2018, for example, you would hike all 3 of those trails in that year, which is what I did this year. And I will add that just a couple of days ago, right before the end of 2018, another woman actually finished the calendar Triple Crown. So there's now actually 2 of us.
Oh, wow, that's awesome. I love hearing
that
it's
pretty
women
cool.
are taking this, it's always, you always see like, oh, here's a man, this and that. And don't get me wrong, it's a great accomplishment for anybody, but you kind of get a little bit of girl power when there's a woman that completes it. So,
yeah.
Okay, so this whole past year, I'm sure that this took a lot of planning to be able to do this in 1 calendar year. And I'm safely assuming that you did not decide, okay, I'm going to hike the entire Appalachian Trail and then fly over and then hike the entire Pacific Crest. Like were you kind of section hiking parts of them to pick different types of the year to do certain parts, or how does that work?
You can do it really any way you want. For me, I did split up the Appalachian Trail and the Continental Divide Trail for a variety of reasons. Weather was one of them, and also just other life stuff. So I did hike a part of the AT, fly out west, hike part of the CET, then do the PCT, and then go back to the CET and finish the AT. So I was jumping back and forth a little bit.
Awesome. I love it. I was reading an article that was written about you, and they happened to mention that something really special happened at the very beginning of your hike, that you got engaged.
Yeah, my fiance proposed to me on Springer Mountain at the beginning of my hike this year, or last year.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So I'm sure those probably, in the back of your head when you're sitting there, by yourself at night going, okay, now let's see, how are we going to plan a wedding? Like, what do we want to do?
Yeah, there was definitely a lot of like wedding planning thoughts going on while I was hiking.
That probably kept your mind kind of, at ease and rather than kind of wandering off to God knows what. Because I've never backpacked personally. I want to. I have two very small kids. And it's so strange for me. Like, I can see a bear, I can see wildlife, but just in silence and then hearing something move, I'm like, something's going to come and get me. And it's so so I'm sure that having something else on your mind definitely helped.
Yeah, it does.
Okay, so I have a couple questions from my girls, and then we'll get back into some more other questions. So April, she is one of our ambassadors and staffers, and she wants to know what initially promoted you wanting to even tackle such a huge adventure.
Well, when the first person did a calendar year Triple Crown back in 2001, I read about it shortly after finishing my very first through hike, which was the Appalachian Trail. And as soon as I read about it, I was like, I want to do this. And so it took 15 years, but I finally did it.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. That's awesome. And she also wants to know, what was the scariest moment in all of those days out on the trail? Or the most
I guess,
hard one.
yeah, I mean, there's a few different like scary moments, but I probably like the night on the AT in the spring when there was just a severe weather, like winter storm coming through, and I couldn't get my tent set up, and so I was starting to get hypothermic, and everything was soaking wet, and because it was raining, and then it turned to snow, and it was just a very cold night. I eventually got my tent set up and got warmed up, but everything was soaked by the time I did, and so it was just kind of a scary moment anytime you're out in the backcountry and Mother Nature's not being very nice.
And was that one night where you were by yourself and there was nobody else with you?
Yeah, I was all alone that night.
Oh, wow. So that definitely had to kind of keep you amped up, with the weather and things like that. Oh, wow. I can't even imagine.
Yeah.
Well, the good thing is that, you have a neat story to tell from it. So that always.
Right.
So Val wants to know, what type of financial preparation did you have to do? Because going on these trails, even just one of them can be a very expensive task. Were you sponsored, or did you just plan and save up? How does that work?
I planned and saved up for it. I did get a little bit of financial assistance from a couple of companies. Not very much, but some that helped. And basically I always hike really frugally. So I don't stay in a lot of hotels, and, because being in the woods is free. It's just what you spend when you're in town. So I don't really stay in towns. I don't eat at restaurants. I don't really stay in hotels. Mostly I'm just on the trail the whole time. I did a lot of mail drops, at least for the first 6 months of my hike. I did mail drops, which helped cut down on costs. And I just was prepared mentally to just be completely broke when I got done, which I was. So,
but it's worth it. So worth it.
Yeah.
And you probably had a support system too in this, because in order, to be able to mail everything out. And did anybody like meet up with you at certain points and things like that?
Yeah, I mean, my fiance ended up meeting me a lot along the Appalachian Trail and the Continental Divide Trail, and he ended up hiking, or he was planning to hike the whole Pacific Crest Trail with me, so we hiked that together.
Aww.
And then I had 3 friends in various parts of the country that all had kind of backup gear and things like that they could mail out to me if I needed it. So, and then I had lots of friends along all the trails that let me stay with them or met up with me along the way. So I had a lot of support, which was wonderful.
That's awesome. And so I can imagine that hiking all of that gear doesn't last very long.
Yeah, some stuff didn't. Other stuff made it through all 3 trails, and I'm still using it. So It
Oh,
just kind of depends.
oh wow. What is one piece of gear that after doing all of this, let's say somebody's like, okay, this is my future goal. I'm going to do this in a calendar year. What is one piece of gear that you would tell them, listen, you have to have this the entire time?
Well, I mean, I think it's important to get a backpack that works for you. I happen to like Gossamer Gear backpacks, and they work for me. And I used two different packs because everything wouldn't fit in my pack during the winter months. So
Mm,
basically, I put like 2/3 of the whole trip on one backpack, and then like a third of the rest of it on another backpack. And I mean, both backpacks are fine. Like I'll keep using them for years. So getting a good pack that fits you and is durable is really important because you don't want your backpack just like falling apart in the middle of the woods. And then also just having a good quality shelter that's going to be appropriate, especially for a calendar year Triple Crown, because you have a lot of variance in weather, and you may have to get a second shelter just for the sake of winter being winter.
very true, especially in some of the areas in the mountains. From what I'm reading on some of these trails, I mean, you may not even have
Yeah.
coverage. I mean, you're kind of out there. And then,
Yeah. Yeah, definitely the high country in Colorado is very exposed. And so is the desert sections.
oh wow. So basically, a good tip for somebody is, do some research, of course, which I would pray to God that everybody does if they wanted to do this. But
Right.
let's just not just wing it, but that, having a pack that's more for some of the colder weathers, and then maybe another one, or at least have something prepared that you can swap out, because I didn't think about that. You're going to be going through, if you're going through the summer months in some areas, I mean, it's going to be scorching hot. You don't want to be carrying around your winter stuff. So,
hmm
yeah. Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I basically had to have two sets of gear, one for winter, like really cold conditions, and then a 3-season set of gear. And so I was able to swap that out at intervals when it was appropriate.
That's awesome. Now this kind of this question's from Jana, and this kind of goes into your budget friendly kind of a philosophy here. Is she wants to
Mhm.
know, how did you maintain good nutrition, because she can't imagine eating an entire year of dehydrated food. So how did you
Yeah.
be able, how were you able to like not get sick and tired of dehydrated food, and what were some of the things that you ate?
Um, I eat a really wide variety of food. So like I said, the first 6 months were all I really planned for as far as like boxes and things like that. And partially for like spoilage reasons, partially because I didn't want to spend a lot of money and time on things, and if like I didn't make it, if there was an injury or something and I had to quit, so it just seemed reasonable to only do the first few months. And so yeah, in those first 6 months, I ate a lot of dehydrated meals, a lot of bars, a lot of traditional backpacking foods, and then about the time that those boxes were running out, I was also tired of eating any sort of hiking food. So the last 2-3 months, like I just ate whatever. I packed applesauce out. Like it was just like whatever in the grocery store looked good. I was like, well, we'll try it. I was just so sick of everything. And I mean, by the time I got off the trail, I was just literally sick of eating, period. Like I just didn't even want to eat food. Like I just wasn't, like I was just so tired of it. Because you just have to eat a lot all the time for months on end, and it's just you just kind of get, for me at least, I just got tired of eating. But um
Yeah, because
yeah,
they
so I basically,
say that
huh?
you burn, like an average hiker, a through hiker burns more calories than a marathon runner in a day. And I couldn't
Yeah,
believe that. I was like, oh my gosh, like how much food do you have to eat to be able to keep going?
yeah, it's a lot. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Oh my goodness. So when you got off the trail, was there like, and once you were happy to eat again, was there one
Yeah.
particular meal that you were like, okay, this is kind of my celebratory meal. I've waited all year for this. Like, what was that?
I didn't really necessarily have something that like I was like a fancy celebratory meal. We did go out for some really good Texas barbecue on our drive from New Mexico to Florida, which was really good. But aside from that, I basically ate 3 salads a day, like breakfast, lunch, and dinner for about the first 2 weeks because all I wanted was fresh vegetables.
Oh, I can imagine.
Yeah,
And
it was
I'm
just
sure,
like anything fresh. So it was just tons and tons of fresh fruits and veggies.
and you didn't, and I'm sure, like, if you went into a grocery store and saw anything like in a bar form or dehydrated, you just turned right around. Like, I don't even want to
Oh
look.
yeah, yeah, definitely. Not even interested.
So Val has another question for you. I have some of the girls. They're on Facebook Live with me right now. There are patron members only, and they're really excited to be able to hear from you. And she wants to know, how did you deal with hiker hunger?
So this is kind of an interesting thing. So for anybody who doesn't know what hiker hunger is, it's basically when you get to the point where you're just insatiably hungry all the time and you can sit down and eat 10,000 calories and still be hungry. It's like you just have amassed such a massive calorie deficit. And aside from my FKT hikes, I haven't had hiker hunger since like my first 3 hikes, my first Triple Crown.
Oh wow!
So I don't know what happened, but at some point my body made a metabolic adaptation that unless I'm doing like 40 plus miles a day, I just don't develop hiker hunger. Like I eat about the same number of calories per day on trail as off trail when I'm off trail and running a lot, which is what I do in the off season. So I'm hungrier on trail. Like I definitely eat more than I would like right now when I'm just kind of being sedentary and recovering. But
Yeah.
it's not that like insatiable hiker hunger. I'll have a day every once in a while, like where I just eat like 8,000 calories and I'm just like, wow, that was a lot. But it's not like an ongoing thing. So I've considered myself pretty lucky because my first few years of through hiking, it was pretty frustrating to just be hungry all the time and be dreaming about food and um, all of that. So
I can only imagine that, like, just how, like, did you hear stories of people who literally, it's like, they almost like drive themselves stir crazy because they're just so hungry.
mhm.
They're like, oh man, like,
Yeah.
especially if you're like dreaming about like a specific food. You're like, okay, if I could just get a piece of pizza out in the back of
Mhm.
my brain right now.
Yeah. Yeah, it can be really it can be one of like the things that makes you really miserable on a hike. It's just I mean, hunger is a very like primitive primal like urge and to just feel hungry all the time is
Oh,
just like so like yeah, it definitely messes with you mentally and can make your hike really miserable. So, um yeah, and I think part of the reason I don't deal with it as much is I try very hard to eat higher quality food now. When I was first hiking, it was all Pop Tarts and peanut butter and cookies, because that was just, what was cheap and readily available. And so like I go out of my way now to like try to buy better quality bars and like at least eat half my bag of food is like what I would consider nutritionally dense, and then I put the cookies and stuff in on top of that. But
you gotta have a
so I
true,
think
yeah,
eating a higher quality stuff helps with that hiker hunger because you're getting your body is part of the reason it's giving you hunger signals is it's not getting enough nutrition. So if you're giving it adequate nutrition, I take a lot of supplements when I hike too. And so I think when you're getting adequate nutrition, your body doesn't incessantly send you hunger signals because it's getting what it needs, even if it's not getting as many calories. It helps balance it out, I guess. That's my theory anyway.
I love it. Thank you so much for answering that question. Because we
Sure.
have a lot of people who, in our groups, they always ask us, what how do we prep, especially people who are trying to tackle even just a section of like the AT or something, and they're just wanting to do like a week or two. They always try and ask, like, what do we, how do we fight this? And so hearing it from somebody who, you were hiking a heck of a lot longer than a couple weeks. So, those
Yeah.
would definitely help. Let's see, a couple of other girls. One of the girls wants to know, How did you get your trail name?
It's from my Native American great-great-grandmother. She was Anishinaabe, and so my trail name is actually Anishinaabe, but nobody calls me that. Everybody just calls me Anish.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, because I've hear, some people get to pick their trail names and some people don't. And so, and
Right.
I learned this from my cousin who was a thru hiker on the AT, and he didn't get to pick his name, so
Uh-huh.
he was
Well,
slow.
if you pick it before somebody gives you one, that's the
Yeah,
key.
he didn't know that you were supposed to.
And that's what I did. So I picked
Yeah,
mine
yeah,
on my very first thru hike.
good. See, yeah, that makes it easy. Yeah. Because I didn't know that. I was like, when he came back and he's like, they started calling me Slow Rod because I was slow. And I was like, well, So, okay, let's see. Jana wants to know, what's your best wildlife encounter?
Mm, I've had a lot of really amazing wildlife encounters over the years. This year, I think probably one of the coolest ones was in Montana, and I was just hiking through a meadow in the morning, and I guess this animal in the grass, and at first I was really confused as to what it was, and then it like stopped and looked at me, and I realized it was a badger,
Oh
and
my
I'd never seen a badger before, and it was huge, and
oh
I was like standing there just like staring at this badger, and it was staring at me, and then I was like, oh wait, these can be really mean, and I was like, I gotta get out of here, and I just like turned and took off, and I looked back, and it like went down a hole. But it was a really kind of a cool experience because I'd never seen one in the wild before.
It's something you don't think about. You always think about when I ask some of these questions, some people they'll always mention like, oh, bear or elk or moose, and I never thought about a badger. That's awesome to be able to.
Yeah, I mean, I love seeing new wildlife because I've seen lots of bears and moose and elk, and it's always cool to see them. But I like the fact that even though I've hiked nearly 30,000 miles, I still see animals I hadn't seen before, and that's pretty neat.
So I'm gonna selfishly ask a question because I'm a Florida girl. Have you or do you have any plans to through hike the Florida Trail?
I don't think I'll through hike it, but I have been working on section hiking it over the last couple winters. And I think it's just like for me, it's a good one to come down here and do chunks during the winter.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so I just before Christmas we went and did like a big 24-mile section in the Ocala, and I
Oh,
saw my first Florida bear, so I was super excited about that. Um, 'Cause
yay!
that was like on my bucket list to see a Florida bear.
Oh yeah.
So
Many
yeah,
people don't realize that we have bears here in Florida. We're not just all about
yeah,
alligators. No, we got bears.
yeah. Yeah, it was really cool. Like I think the bear was probably very terrified because we had stopped to like take a picture right in front of it and didn't know that it was there. And like I heard something and I was like, that was weird. And then we walked like 10 feet and then I was like, oh no, that was definitely a bear noise. And like I look up in the tree and there's just this bear and it's like looking at us and it looked terrified because we had just been standing there for like 5 minutes. And the poor bear was just like, would you please leave?
Oh yeah, it's
So
it's so funny when you see them down here because when you see the bears on the trails, more than likely as soon as they see you, if they're not up in a tree, they're gone. They're like, bye, we're out of here. So being
yeah,
able to see one up close is really really a special treat. I'm happy that you're able
yeah,
to do sections of the Florida Trail because it's definitely one that a whole bunch of people don't know too much about, and it's so beautiful, especially the Ocala area. Oh, it's great.
yeah,
So,
I've really enjoyed all the sections I've done. So I'm looking forward to piecing it all together.
oh, I'm so excited. So, a couple more questions, because we're coming to the end here. So, one question is, if you could hike with one person, dead or alive, who would it be?
John Muir.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
Because I read John Muir's writings when I was in college, right after I first discovered hiking. And it was just very inspiring to me. to read like all of his writings and like how he dedicated his life to conservation. And I also just really enjoyed his like philosophy, like the fact that he just was like, I'm going to walk to South America, and just like set off and like walked all the way from like I think New York City to basically the tip of Florida, and then got on a boat and took it to like South America, and like walked a little more and then gave up because of malaria. But just like, I don't know, just the way he did things. And when he found the Sierra, he just like went out with a loaf of bread and was like out there just wandering around, climbing mountains and exploring. And I just thought his way of doing things was really cool.
Oh, I love that. I love that. So for any of our listeners that don't know who he is, we need to go research him, because he sounds like a really amazing person that has had a really great story to tell, for sure. Okay, so this is a question that Rebecca always asks everybody, and so I like to carry the tradition on. And Rebecca's the founder of Hike Like a Woman. She always asks, if you could go back in time and give one piece of advice to your 12-year-old self, what would that be?
I think it'd be the same piece of advice that I give everyone who asks me, and that is follow your dreams. Because it took me a long time to get to the point where I was willing to follow them, but it's been a great and amazing ride ever since.
Oh, I love it. And it's very, very true, because so many of us, we have these big dreams, but then we're like, oh, they're just dreams. We're not going to do them. But it's so important to be able to just go after them. And you're reading your story and learning about you. I had a couple ambassadors who kept messaging me saying, Crystal, you've got to get a hold of her. She's so amazing. And so I'm like, okay, because your story, really resonated with a lot of people. So I'm really, really happy that you took the time to come on here. And I really think our listeners are going to really enjoy hearing from you. So is there, what's your next big adventure this coming year? I mean, other than getting married, what's the adventures you're planning?
So this year is kind of focused around promoting my book that's coming out March 1st. It's a book I wrote about my Pacific Crest Trail hike in 2013. Ooh. So I'm planning a lot of mini adventures while I'm traveling around promoting that book. I haven't got any like giant, amazing plans, and that's okay. I'm really okay with taking a year off from really big stuff. And so I'm really looking forward to just spending a lot of time with my soon-to-be husband and doing smaller adventures and traveling around the country and just seeing what there is to do in on the small scale.
I love it. And if anybody wants to buy this book, what's the title of it? You said it comes out March 1st?
Yeah, so the title is called Thirst, 2,600 Miles to Home, and it's being published by Mountaineers Books. And its release date is March 1st. If you look for it on Amazon, you can pre-order it now. And then I should be also able to sell advanced copies directly from my website a little earlier than March 1st. It just depends on when it gets back from the printer. But yeah, so it'll be available everywhere March 1st and from Mountaineers Books, or you can do a pre-order now on Amazon.
Awesome. And if people want to find you on social media or online, where would they be able to find you at?
Instagram is the best place to start. My handle there is Anish Hikes. I also have a website, anishhikes.wordpress.com, and that has kind of a little bit of everything, has links to everything and gear lists and all of that good stuff there too.
Thank you for listening to the Hike Like a Woman podcast. Don't forget to check us out online at www.hikelikeawoman.net. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Looking for a great book? Join our Adventure Book Club, where we read an amazing outdoor book every month and host weekly discussions. Don't forget about our quarterly magazine. with loads of great info from gear to trails and even recipes. Want to go hiking with us? Then check out our local hiking group section on our website to see where the nearest locals group is to you. Thanks for listening and have a wonderful week.